Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Minig. I am the host of the podcast Behavioral Health Integration. Today's episode will be about internships and the good and the bad. Now, at the end of the day, I just really feel like this is going to be my hardest episode to do, just because I promised you, the listeners, that on my first episode that I was going to be fully honest, vulnerable, and at the end of the day, you really don't know really like how that's going to look with yourself, with the people that are listening. But at the same time, I feel like I need to honor that, and I need to be a man of my word, and that is what I'm going to do. Now, to start off, the way my school did it is you had 2 internships. So your first one would be more of like a 100-hour practicum site internship. So you just go somewhere and you choose a site and you do the 100 hours. And I guess if you like that site, you could sign up for the second internship there for the remaining 880, which again is required for your LADC, licensed alcohol drug counselor, licensed in Minnesota. So now I want to get into my first internship site, which was Latino High School. That was in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I actually was interned through a company that ran therapists through like their certain school sites. So I was just working under a LMFT that was working for the school, and she was Latino as well. And it was majority Latino. There was a few Caucasian teachers, but it had a strong Latino presence. And I really felt like when I was going to start the internship that I was going to gain a lot of awareness of multicultural concepts, terms, which again I did. And I thought I was going to learn more about the language, which I did not, but that's all going to make sense a little bit later. So, as I said before, I'm going to discuss the pros and cons of my experiences, and, I'm going to criticize the site to an extent, but at the same time, too, I'm also going to explain my negative issues and things that I need to work on to become a better professional in this field, because I'm not innocent either. And I always like reframing from this quote, or it's not so much like a quote, but it's more of like a way of life that I've been taught when it comes to like management and working together with people, where that's fine, if you want to, I guess, criticize the boss for doing something wrong or criticizing the company for their rules and policies, you have the right to do that. But what a lot of bosses will say is, fine, do that, but offer at least one solution or one way we could do things better, rather than just complain all the time and not give any answers to a solution. So that is what I'm going to try to do today in this episode. And it wasn't easy. It really wasn't. And I feel like this is going to be one of my harder episodes, but maybe one of my better ones. So so like I said, it was more of like I don't want to say culture shock, but again, it really had a strong Latino presence to the school, and there was really a lot to learn from, again, like microaggressions, my own awareness, issues that other cultures may go through that I'm not aware of, and I definitely gained knowledge in that for sure. But now I also kind of want to go over the goals of what I actually think an internship should be about for the student. And some of the goals I kind of wrote down was getting comfortable with the client, because that's huge, because that plays so much in the therapeutic role and their success, is that initial relationship. You want that to always be positive. And then 2, learning how to run groups, which unfortunately I never got a chance to do there, because unfortunately I didn't make it there that long, and again I'll get into that later. Conducting mental health assessments, which I did a couple there. That was good. One-on-one mental health sessions, and also one-on-one substance abuse sessions. And there is a difference too. Now, another initial issue, but there at the site was they didn't really have an LADC that could supervise me. Again, my supervisor was just an LMFT. So off the bat, I was kind of worried that I wasn't going to be able to intern there. But, I worked with my academic advisor and everything, and she's an LADC. So they were able to, I guess, supervise me that way, where I would go to her for my LADC internship hours, and I would go to my supervisor for my mental health hours. And, it's funny because, one of my biggest fears was kind of paperwork, just, again, learning how to do mental health counseling type paperwork, because I've never done that before. The classes teach you some things about that, but you don't really know until you get in there, what's the formatting like, what are the terms like, what are the deadlines, and all that, and that's all very important stuff to know. And I'm not going to lie, their paperwork was kind of different. It was just a really, really long. I'm just going to say that. And it really seemed very redundant, and a lot of different formats are like that. They use Percentive, which I'm a huge fan of. I guess I want to say huge fan. I like it, but at the same time, that's all I've ever really known. So I'm just very used to it. So I'm not too familiar with other programs, which could be, again, more efficient. But, it was just the way Percentive was set up is just different everywhere you go. And it was just something, new for me to learn. But, yeah, a lot of paperwork, a lot of the assessment, went into, asking the same questions. It seemed over and over again. It was redundant, and I feel like they could have shortened it a lot, actually. And now I guess I want to get into the difficult part, is kind of explaining my negative experiences there. And I was kind of torn, actually doing this, because some of the negative things that really kind of happened to me at that site, or that I perceived to be negative, wasn't really counseling related. But again, that's where I did my counseling, so I felt like it did affect me a little bit. And it's off the bat, the first thing my supervisor told me is, don't act like the white and shining armor. Don't try to be the white hero for these kids, because they're not going to appreciate it and they're not going to like it. And to be honest with you, when I heard that, it actually didn't bother me that much, because I really understood where she was coming from, and I could definitely see how that type of mentality would rub these kids the wrong way. Because you just have to understand is that they haven't always had positive, healthy experiences with Caucasians, especially older white Caucasian males. And that's one of the most powerful things I actually learned there, was just the struggle that these Latino kids go through every day. And I think that's something my supervisor actually did a great job with me, is explaining a lot of their situations, which were, again, very similar to hers. Growing up in the city and the state, where unfortunately, a lot of their family and relatives don't have green cards. They're not here legally. So a lot of the times, and I'm probably going to butcher this legal term or whatnot, or profession, but the Border Patrol would come here and they would take their family members away, because again, they came over here legally or whatnot, didn't have a green card. So she explained to me, even when she was growing up, there was a lot of times she was afraid of coming home, because she didn't know if her mom and dad were actually going to be there, or they were going to be taken away. And that actually, to be honest with you, happened to her a couple times, I think. I don't really remember all the details, but again, she was trying to explain to me, that's what these kids go through every day. So they're going to have some negative thoughts about you or your presence just because of the way you look. And it's not right or wrong. It's just something that, Caucasian therapists in my situation need to overcome and help gain that acceptance and trust from them, which again we may have to work a little bit harder for. So now moving on, there was another situation that, to be honest, did bother me. It involved like a nutritional lecture that the principal of the school was doing. And, it being like a smaller high school and everything, a lot of the staff would just get together and do nice things like this for the kids and everything. And again, it was the high schoolers making a meal, and the principal was helping them throughout the process, like cooking things, but also giving like nutritional advice for the kids. But as one particular incident that really bothered me, and I'm just going to be honest with you and the listeners about it. And I would love to hear what you think about this, because I might get the terms wrong. So please email me or leave me a comment below on this and your perceptions. But, during the nutritional lecture, I was there giving my support, and the principal was talking about foods and how, Caucasians brought over like different types of foods to America during the Native American days and everything. And, it was good for them. But again, I guess it really affected the Native Americans and their ability to process foods differently than us. Because I guess from what I've learned, all races don't metabolize things the same way or digest things the same way and whatnot. Anyways, and she just went into it a little bit further again about like white people. And granted, at this time, I was the only white person in the kitchen and everything. The rest were Latino kids. And she went on talking about like the prices of really good foods, how really good healthy food for you is naturally very expensive. And the thing that, really bothered me the most about that is she went on to explaining how, have you ever noticed that all rich white people are in really good shape? And the reason being is because they can afford like the good, healthy foods. And it was just a really awkward kind of like moment for me. Again, I didn't do anything. I just kind of like smiled, nodded my head, and kind of went about my business. But, because I was the only white person in the room, and I just didn't feel like it was my place to say anything, even though I obviously disagreed with her and everything. I wasn't going to say in front of all the kids and teachers and stuff like that. It would have just put me in a really tough situation, so I just didn't say anything, and I went about my day. I kind of shrugged it off, whatever. But what I kind of realized is that when I do that, though, it kind of still bothers me because I don't really assert myself into the issue. I don't take care of the issue. I just kind of put it to a side, but it never really goes away, And the funny thing is that I would have been more okay with it if she would have said most rich people. Because to me, there's a huge difference between all and most. And I guess I would have gained a better understanding if she would have said most rich white people are in really good shape because they can afford the good foods and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, it actually did bother me. But again, I was the only white person in the room. I was an intern. I didn't feel like it was my place to say anything. So I just moved on, And sadly, stuff there happened more often. Just again, more on how like white people did this, white people. And at the end of the day, I do my most to empathize with what they're going through. And obviously, I'm a firm believer in all human rights and multicultural awareness. It was just, again, very difficult to have that like thrown in my face every day I went to my internship. In one way or another, I kind of feel like it's maybe white shame in a little bit. Again, I'm not trying to be inconsiderate, and I hope I'm getting these terms right. If I'm not, I apologize. But that's just kind of how I felt there. And again, this isn't counseling, but it still affected my counseling, if that makes sense. And it affected my ability to perform at the internship, and obviously there, again, was a language barrier between me and a lot of the kids because I know extremely low or Spanish and everything. And again, it would have been great for me to learn Spanish, but I know it's not the easiest language to learn, especially for me, anyways. So there's like the culture barrier, the language barrier, and it was just a lack of support, you know. And not saying like all internships that don't have like a lot of people with you helping you out are like bad, but I was my supervisor's first intern at the site. So she was kind of new at this, and I definitely was new at this. So we were just trying to like do the best we can to work with the situation, you know. So I started in the summertime when it came to the school term and everything. So there weren't a lot of high schoolers there. So it really gave me and my supervisor like a chance to talk and get to know each other and everything, which is great. It's good to know your supervisor on many different levels and everything. But I can also imagine there might be some boundary crossings when it comes to some of our conversation topics. And that also actually happened a couple of times. And again, I'm not saying you can't have a good relationship with your supervisor, but I just feel like maybe some conversations you just shouldn't get into in a learning environment, especially, you know, being an intern. You just want to focus on the work, but again, still build a good therapeutic relationship or empathetic relationship with your supervisor. I get it. The concept that's really coming to me right now is like a date. You know, on your first date or whatever, never bring up religion, politics, and etc. You know what I mean? And, you know, sometimes we would get into like political conversations, and that's my fault as well. You know, she wasn't all in the wrong because I engaged her in certain like political conversations, and I got a feeling we might have rubbed each other the wrong way at times, which again, that's not a good thing, you know, especially when it could be avoided by just staying away from some of those conversations. But again, you know, we spent a lot of time together. She was helping me out. We were in her office. I didn't really have an office. I did most of my like work just sharing her office, which again was difficult too at times because I feel like I need my space, she needs her space and everything. And I guess the one thing I want the listeners to be just aware of, especially the ones that are thinking about getting into this field, is do the best of your ability to keep things professional at work. You know, especially you being the intern and you're in a situation like this. You know, again, form a good relationship, but again, stay away from like sex talk, religion, politics, you know, and you should be fine. And unfortunately, you know, I participated in some of those political conversations, and that wasn't professional of me to do. You know, I didn't need to engage that. And, you know, there was also like another really bad incident where I just, you know, I was quitting my job as a tech, and I was interviewing for this homeless shelter outreach job. I believe you're just going out in the communities and promoting like homeless shelters and everything, and helping people like increase their awareness on it, giving them flyers so if they need a homeless shelter for the night, you can help them out with that, whatnot. And so I was applying for this job, but towards the end of the interviews, whatever, I had a feeling like I didn't want to do it. And one of the main reasons was, well, two main reasons. One is I just didn't think I was going to like the job anyways. You know, it just wasn't my thing, just walking up to random people and talk to them. That's just not my cup of tea. And like one of the biggest reasons, and again, I don't mean to offend people, but I feel like, you know, sometimes some people are always going to get offended. One of the job locations, or the main job location where I was going to be working at in this particular job, was North Minneapolis. And I know North Minneapolis gets a bad rap a lot of the times, being known as a very dangerous place. You know, a place where like a lot of violence happens, shootings happen. And what I just kind of explained to her was, you know, I just didn't feel comfortable working in North Minneapolis, like late at night in certain areas. I don't know, because that's the job, and I know I was going to be putting myself in those situations. And I just went on to explain to her, I'm like, yeah, you know, it seems like a dangerous area, and I just don't want the job. And I could just tell, like, right when I, like, told her that, she got very, like, upset. And she just, I got the sense that she was, let's just say, triggered maybe by it. And she went into, like, discussion on how, like, you need to look into that. Those are your issues. Those are negative stereotypes, And then she then started explaining how she lived in North Minneapolis and it was fine and she didn't have those issues, and that I need to work on me not stereotyping certain places. And she went into another discussion on how the city of Farmington, Minnesota is more dangerous and has more guns than Minneapolis or North Minneapolis, because of, like, a mental institute getting shut down and the clients had to go to certain areas in Farmington to live and so forth. And so just, I don't know, the grand scheme of things is just, again, maybe I shouldn't have brought it up. I should have just stuck to, like, work issues and stuff like that. I mean, as in work issues, I mean, like, my internship, it wasn't my intent to, like, get into it with her about not working North Minneapolis. It was just like a conversation starter. Hey, I'm not feeling this job, and it turned into something that I didn't want it to turn into. And, from the outside, maybe people could just perceive that as she was just calling me a racist, which I'm not saying that at all. But I just feel like, I don't know. I had a lot, to be honest with you. It was one of those things where I shrugged it off again and I just tried to move on. Even though, it just caused more negative issues with me internally working with her because I didn't really confront her respectfully. Again, assertively being like, hey, I didn't appreciate that. I think your perception of me in that situation was wrong. And talked it out. But again, some things I need to work on is just be more upfront with people, and you can't always just keep shrugging things off and moving forward, because that's just, again, going to make things a lot worse down the road. And it did really affect my relationship working with her down the road, just because I had such anger kind of in me, over the situation. Like, why does she get the right to tell me how to feel, or I'm wrong for not working somewhere, or I'm wrong for not working somewhere because of my safety? I felt like she had no right to say that to me. Those were all the emotions that were going on within myself at that moment and that time, and it just wasn't good, and it was really tough, And also, just because, like, I know people who live in North Minneapolis. I know African Americans who live in North Minneapolis who tell me it's dangerous. And again, I don't want to get too far off the content of this episode and everything. It was just obviously maybe a conversation I should never have brought up. But again, I didn't think it was going to take me or us there to that point. So yeah, again, I tried to move forward, and it just wasn't really working out with me there. I wasn't really getting a lot of clients. And she was just telling me, like, you need to earn their trust. You need to earn their respect. You can't just, like, get them as clients, which I understood. But at the same time, it's going to help with my learning experience, working with clients, adolescents. And it was just kind of a struggle. And again, it was like the language barrier, the culture barrier, and maybe it was some negative stigma. I'm not sure. And another problem that didn't have anything to do with that conversation, but again, it was just more me and her. There wasn't any other, like, supervisors there. There wasn't any other fellow interns there. It was just me and her. So whenever I felt like I had an issue with, like, the paperwork, the assessments, I couldn't always come to her because she was busy. So I had to figure a lot of stuff on my own. Now, like, there were, like, other interns who had emails with our company, so I could have always, like, sent them a message, but that was just a lot of work, and again, I felt alone, especially with all that going on. And it was so funny. I just remember one particular day where I spent like 3 hours at least just trying to understand this assessment, getting it done for one of my clients, getting the insurance set up, which is a lot of work. Just to let all you listeners know, at a lot of places, they have a billing department, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. Anyways, I remember that day, though, like it was yesterday, where I was working in the area of the school, and I literally spent at least 3 hours working on the paperwork for this one client. And at the end of that third or fourth hour or whatnot, I was just zonked out. I wasn't even done with the paperwork, and I just thought to myself, this isn't for me anymore. I gotta go, It's just not good for my, learning development or just my experience, and I'm just not getting the help I need. And then you have, the social issues that were going on with me and my supervisor at the time, which, again, a lot of this was internal, on the outside. I really tried to play it cool with people on how I was feeling, which it's not the best way to go. And like I said, I've said that before. And so, after that day, I definitely made the decision, and I called my academic advisor up, and I just told her, hey, can we set up a meeting, just me and you? So, a few days later, I sat with my advisor, and we were talking, and I just told her, I want to leave. I just told her that, it's just not working out. And when she heard that, she's like, okay, tell me why, give me a reason. And I went on to telling her just what was going on with me and her, the conversations, which I've told her before too. So she had some idea what was going on. And again, her being a Caucasian woman, she, like me, struggled kind of understanding some of this stuff too. But yeah, and then when she was done listening to me just talk about my issues, she's like, okay. And to be honest with you, Jake, she said, I fully support your decision. I never really thought it was a good place for you to be. And I'm giving you the green light pretty much. I support you. So, which was great. And, but at the same time, I was dreading the fact of going back there next Monday and again having to tell my supervisor that I'm quitting, because it's like quitting a job, even though I was an intern and everything. It was just time to give my 2 weeks notice, and she was really nice though. She's like, I don't want it to be all on you, Jake. This coming from my advisor. Just tell her, we both talked about it, and we just feel like it's in my best interest to move on and go to a site that has more of a chemical abuse staff that can help me out along with mental health, where there was just mental health. So it kind of made sense. And again, she didn't want me to feel alone in this process. So, because again, my academic advisor was also my teacher in that class. So she would visit the site. So she was actually at the school a couple times talking to my supervisor, and she knew what was going on. She saw the setting and the environment and everything. So, and it just wasn't good for my therapeutic growth. So I told my supervisor on Monday. It was tough, but I got through it and everything. And I just kind of explained to her, me and my supervisor just think it's in my best interest just to move on to my next practicum, because I did complete the 100 hours. So I did complete the class and the 100-hour requirement for a site. And now I'm just choosing another site to do my second internship. So that's kind of how I put it with her. And she was, again, kind of bummed and everything, but she understood. Again, this is what she was saying on the outside. I don't know what she was feeling on the inside. But it was just a sucky situation, because she had plans for us to start group counseling with the kids and everything, and just do other stuff that she had in mind. And now that I'm leaving, all that stuff had to be put on hold, but again, it was the best decision for me. It just really was. It was tough, but at the end of the day, if you take away all the stuff I was talking about the white shame or the systemic racism and whatnot, if you just take all that away, I still would want to leave, because again, it just didn't seem like a place that was good for me to learn. She's never had an intern. I didn't have support there, and I just felt, again, it was my best interest to go somewhere that was more set up for me to be successful, So then the next step I had to do was email the internship director for the company that I was interning with at the time, just explaining to them like my decision, everything, and why I'm deciding to move on. And unfortunately, this was just a really messy situation that got messier, because when the director emailed me back, she seemed okay at first in the email after the first couple of sentences, but then it got pretty bad. She's like, I understand your decision, but you made a commitment to us to work the whole school year. Which, again, I don't remember making that commitment, but I probably signed a contract or something that stated that, so she's probably right. But anyway, she went on to saying that it was, not professional of me to do this, and it wasn't right for me to break the contract, and that I made a commitment, and I'm leaving that commitment and whatnot. And it was just a really sucky situation, It was. Do I want to say she was unprofessional? Yeah, I do. And it sucks because, I really want to avoid burning bridges in this field, because that's what everyone always tells me. In the behavioral health field, of course, all jobs you don't want to burn bridges, but this is a field where you really, really, really don't want to burn bridges. I keep getting that pounded in my head. And I'm irritated because I felt like I did everything in my power not to burn bridges in this situation. It wasn't the right environment for me. I don't want to be there anymore. I have no ill will. I still respect them as a facility. I respect their model. I love what they're trying to do to help minorities in this state, the world, Latino adolescents in our state. That's awesome. I am in full support of what they're trying to do. Do I agree with all their methods and how they're doing it and what they're teaching the kids sometimes? No, I don't. But I still respect them as an organization to the fullest. But again, it was just not a good email, and I burnt bridges, when I'm trying not to. So that was just very irritating. So again, I just, I called my academic advisor, because in that email, she wanted to know, okay, give me the name of your advisor and phone number. Okay, assuming that she wants to talk to her. So again, I inform my advisor of this, and she's like, that's fine. She has my back, and she's like, okay, tell that director to call me. That's fine. Yeah, give her my information. So I did that and whatnot, and so I had a few more days left at the internship. I did as much as I could just to try to finish up. And unfortunately, I never actually finished the paperwork for that one client. I just couldn't do it, and I didn't really know how to finish it, and that sucked. But for the past couple of days I was there, the good thing was that me and her had a heart-to-heart, because she got the sense that there were some other issues going on, which again, she was right. So me and her had a heart-to-heart about the whole North Minneapolis conversation. And, I also went into, further detail on how I just internally felt, where I literally, felt like every day I was informed of, my white privilege. And she had some role in that, too. It's just, I felt like every day she tried to, teach me about the Caucasian wrongdoings and how I'm so privileged and I'm not aware of it, which I am aware of it, actually. I am aware that I have white privilege, and it doesn't make me lazy. But again, I have some privileges that I'm not always aware of. It just really, burnt me out having that thrown in my face every day, though. That was the hard part, that I got across. But, again, we had the heart-to-heart, and it was actually a really good conversation. And, between the two of us and everything, and it felt good, to be honest with you. It felt like a good closure and a conversation that should have happened a long time ago when all that stuff was happening. But again, me waiting and trying to hold it in just made things worse. So that was a great learning experience on my part. So ultimately it was closure, and I guess it turned out the director never tried calling or emailing my academic advisor and everything. So again, I don't know why she wanted her information then. Maybe again, it was more the heat of the moment kind of stuff for her, where she was really upset because she was planning to have me a whole school year giving therapy for the kids and whatnot. And actually my advisor ended up emailing her. I don't know if it was an actual letter or an email to her stating, your facility just isn't the best environment for our students here, and we wish you nothing but the best of luck, but we will no longer be sending our students to your site. And I agree to some of that. I feel like that site wasn't maybe ideal for like a co-occurring like mental health addiction student, but it could have been a great site for like a social worker or an LMFT or a school counselor and stuff like that. So, but anyways, it was closure and it was time to move on, which led me to transferring to another treatment center. This one was in Minneapolis as well. And it was intensive outpatient with lodging treatment center along with an intensive outpatient. It's like a step down type of process, And yeah, I really, really enjoyed this treatment center. This was an internship site that I felt like made for me, and it was just perfect. And don't get me wrong, there were definitely some struggles and everything like that, but it was just great because again, I got a lot of support, from supervisors, teachers, my fellow interns. We're all like together in the building together. So if I ever had a question about anything, I could just go to someone or try to find someone with an issue. And it was just awesome. I truly loved my time there. And and I first started actually working with the LADC. There was like a process where if you're a co-occurring student, you start out working with like an addiction counselor. And I don't know if this is the same for everyone, but I was working under an addiction counselor, helping her like manage her caseload. I never really had a caseload, but again, I was just kind of with her. And through that process, I first started to learn how to do like process groups, which was like a morning group, and it was like an hour and a half long, going through any issues the clients were going through, processing like high and low, like a client would like start off with their name and how they were feeling and then rate the score and just express to the group like any issues that were going on with them. And that was awesome. And that was actually my first exposure to actually running a group, because before that I never had any experience actually running a group. I took a group therapy class, which helped a little bit, but it's nothing like the real thing, And when I was a tech, I would run like closure groups, but it's again nothing like running an actual group. So I'm not gonna lie, I was super, super nervous. There's a lot of different types of like concepts you could take when being an intern. One is where like the site throws you in too quick and it's more of a sink or swim type mentality, or there's some internship sites that wait too long to throw you in, to running groups, running sessions. And I guess it just happens to go with your personality. What is your personality? What is your confidence level in handling that? And for me, I felt like I was ready to like jump in. But again, there's a lot of different learning experiences. And I really appreciate the way that my LADC kind of helped me along. Where when I first like started working with her and everything, I just sat and just kind of watched her talk. Now, it's good to know, too, to all the listeners, I was only interning like 3 days a week, too. So I think I might have been running some groups by the second week, though. All I remember is like the first two like sessions, I just kind of like watched her do her thing, communicate with the guys, and just saw those exchanges go on. And I think after the second group, we were done and we were sitting in our office and we were talking, and she's like, all right, now I want to see you next group be a little bit more aggressive. She's like, I want to see you take a little bit more control of the conversations, the topic, and I want you to start interacting more with the clients, which was fine with me. And, the next day I did that. And by the end of that group, she looked at me. She's like, all right, I'm fine with you running my groups now. So by the early next week, I actually started running the group, and I was nervous because it was my first time, and yeah, I remember that day like it was yesterday, again, like I was nervous. I think the clients might have sensed I was nervous, but early on it was going okay. This, again, my very first group session, but I think there was a client there that wanted to push my buttons a little bit, and obviously they know it's my first time running group. So I think this one particular client felt like, hey, this is an opportunity for me to take over. And it was just a very interesting kind of awkward situation because I could sense him kind of being aggressive with conversations, aggressive in the sense of talking really fast to other clients and asking him a lot of questions, kind of being trying to be the leader, trying to take over my reign. So I tried to play cool in the beginning, and when it was funny, when we were going from client to client, he'd be like, okay, next question. And he would say the next client's name because we'd kind of go in a clockwise rotation, right? And I noticed this, and I was just thinking in my head, okay, this is just him trying to take control of the group, trying to take control of me, the group. He wanted to be the leader. So again, I played it cool, but then I'm not gonna lie though. Internally though, I was getting really irritated, especially because I knew what he was trying to do and everything. So there was a moment where I tried to prolong conversation a client was having with my own thoughts and ideas. And to be honest with you, I think my anger, my ego, or I don't know if the two just went together in this moment, maybe got the best of me because he tried this particular client interrupting me. And again, I just told him, hey, can you please stop? I'm talking right now. I'm trying to say something. And then he came back with remarks stating, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. So again, me as the group counselor, I felt like, I had redirect him in some way. And I told him, I didn't appreciate that. And if I said, if you don't want to be here, you can go. Because again, I was just getting really irritated with his behavior. And I felt like something had to be done, and that's, I guess, the best response I could think of at that time. So I tried to keep my composure, and then he kind of made a somewhat threatening remark about, oh, so do you want to make me go, in that regard. And then I played it cool. I'm like, hey, man, I can't make you do anything, all right? We're just trying to run this group. So that really actually helped. I think it died down the situation, and then I was able to finish the group. And again, it wasn't perfect, and it wasn't the best response, but I was able to get through it, and right after the session, I informed the counselor of this, and she said it was kind of funny because she was talking to that client beforehand, and that client explained to her that, he's kind of a veteran and he wants to take more of a peer leadership role. And so I'm thinking, okay, that makes sense, and she agreed with me, and because that would have been the time to do it, especially it being my first day and everything. And then she asked me, if you could go back and do anything differently, what would you do? Because again, maybe that wasn't the best response, or the response that I did during group. And I said to her, maybe I should have just asked him, hey man, it seems like you're going through a lot right now. You good? It seems like, you're just trying to interrupt people, or you're trying to interrupt me. And I just want to know what's going on with you, man. So maybe that would have been the more efficient, therapeutic approach to handle that situation. That's the only thing I can think of at the moment. Actually, that's the only thing I can think of now, which would have been better to say to him, I guess. But, yeah, that was one of my first difficulties, but, I got through it, and overall it was a great learning experience for me. So, another issue that I was having in the internship was the concept of running different types of groups. And my thing is that I would get super nervous And we would have the group content and like the weekly group, like messages or quotes or readings. So there would be like trauma week 1, and it would have like 3 pages. And one of my issues was as a young counselor was I would literally try to like prep too much. I would like take the whole like 3 pages and try to like reword it in my own words, on a notebook so I could just fully prepare for every little detail, which again caused me even more stress and more work, So then my supervisor like noticed that, and she's like supervised me in a group and everything. And at the end of it, she told me, she's like, "You're trying to do too much." She just told me to just take a few ideas from a page. Take a few really good concepts and ideas and throw it out there to the clients. And you can get some really great conversations from that can last you majority of the 45-minute group, rather than like writing 2 pages of notes in your notebook just to prepare for group. Because there's a realization is that you're not always going to have a good amount of time to prepare for groups, so you have to be able to, one, think on the run and find those 2 or 3 really important concepts about the title and roll with that, And that might not even work. You might go through a group and have your best material, best stuff out there, and you give it to the clients and they just crap on it, You could literally, like, I remember this one group, it was a process group where they just weren't giving me anything. They were just sluggish, not talking a lot. And I literally, like, went through, like, 3 or 4 different, like, topics or activities, and that barely got me through. So again, like, a lot of it is like the clients willing to put in the work and engage with you, but it's also based on your creativity as well and how you're interacting with the clients, which again just plays a huge role, So, and another thing that I really loved about that internship was that every week we would have like a one-on-one supervision with our internship supervisor, just checking in on us, going through like our client list with them, issues we're having with like groups and clients and such. And it just was really helpful too. And, I don't want to call it like a therapy session, but we would talk about like other things too, about certain stressors on the job, certain stressors in the outside world and everything. I remember I kind of got into some conversations with my actual job at the group home with my supervisor and just the stress that I was kind of going through. And she just gave me advice on how to manage that stress better. And she was just an amazing, huge help. And I really appreciate her through that process, And we'd also have like group supervision where we'd all as interns meet together with the director and supervisor, and we would just talk about our groups, what we could be doing better, differently. And that was really helpful too. It just was. And yeah, I just really love that time of my life, it was really great, and I really do miss it. And yeah, I feel like that's a good thing to say, because again, not everyone has good experiences at their internship sites, especially like me and my first one. But no, it was great. It really, really was, and I learned a lot, from the LADC side of things. And so once like my LADC time was up, because they kind of like wanted to split the time 50-50. I went into the mental health side. Now, on the mental health side, it was just a lot different. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of liked it more just because I felt like there was more time. Again, my issue is you're not always going to have time, so I need to learn to manage my time better. That's what I learned throughout my internship process. Time management is just huge for me and getting paperwork done. And I just felt, though, the mental health side gave me more time to do that. The main thing they wanted us to focus on is when we got over there to learn how to do mental health assessments. They would have their own format on how to do things. They would have a big board set up with all the clients being admitted to the program, and they would have the counselors' names and their caseloads, and what client came with what counselor. And when they would get into the facility, there's like a certain time period where they need to get a mental health assessment done by an intern. So there was like programming set up for that too, because again, you don't want to wait too long because you'll get in trouble with DHS and all that stuff. So as interns, we just had a really important job at just getting those assessments done on time and efficiently. Like for me, when I learned how to start doing mental health assessments, my supervisors really liked me because I would get them done actually at a good speed. Efficiently though, I always try to do a good job, but they would say like an average assessment time could be anywhere between like 50 minutes to like an hour and 20, give or take, and there would be times where I would get them done like in 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Ugh, God, I think one time I got mine done in 35 minutes. And it's hard for me to say because it sounds like I just did it really quick and I didn't have a lot of thought into it, which is not the case at all. Because a lot of it depends on the client too and the emotional state that they're in. Some will just be really hyper. Some will just want to talk, and take it as a therapeutic session when in reality it's not. It's an assessment. So like a good trick that I learned to help with that issue is I just found something that they said in their conversation and related it back to a question I was going to ask in the assessment. So I'm like, oh, hey, so-and-so, I'm glad you said that because I have to ask you A, B, and C, and then that helps them get back on track. And again, that's just what worked for me too. I know a lot of my fellow interns would give them breaks, like smoke breaks or whatnot after like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I personally never did that, because then they're going to take 10, 15 minutes to do their smoke break, come back, and then they may have other obligations or a medical appointment. So then you got to wait till the next day to do their assessment again. So, so I never gave them smoke breaks. I always went all the way through for the most part, unless they just really had to go, and then I finished it right away the next day. And going back to what I said, it really just relates to what condition the client is in. Are they a big talker? Are they just really quiet? A lot of times, I'll get clients who just got put on methadone and they'll just be dozed out, almost sleeping. So I would have to wake them up during this assessment at least 2 or 3 times, which again is not a good thing because you do really want a good, efficient assessment. But again, it's hard to do that when they're not fully there because they just, again, took methadone or another type of medication that would make them dose out. But no, I really enjoyed actually doing assessments and everything. It was a great learning experience just when it came to like diagnosing clients and certain disorders, just really listening to their stories, it just helped build a great, better relationship with them, and it was just a really fun time. And my supervisor helped me out so much when it came to learning about disorders, assessments, and she would go over my assessments and just kind of tell me my mistakes, what I could do better, what I do well. And yeah, it was just awesome, And then you could actually, as an intern, take that client as one of your own. So you would have like a mental health caseload and you would be working with their primary LDC counselor throughout their time at the facility. So that was really cool. It just really taught you about coordination of care, just to, again, help a client, And so I guess you just have an assessment and you get a good feel for them. Because sometimes, like, I would do an assessment and the client just does not prefer working with men. He could have had some issues in the past with men that caused a lot of trauma, so he may feel comfortable talking to a woman. So then I would, again, refer him to like a female intern. So then they could decide if they want to take the client on or not. So yeah, it was a great experience in that part too. And again, I was still like running groups as well. So I would have like different like mental health addiction groups. I would have to get a certain amount of assessments done per day, or at least try to. And we would actually have a assessment supervisor that would help us out throughout the process, and he would take a look at the big whiteboard, and he would like tell us all gather around, and we look at the whiteboard, and he would kind of explain to us, okay, person A, B, C needs to get done today because it's their third day. Who wants to do their assessment? And then the interns would just raise their hands, take it, and we would write it on our notebook, and we'd go to then after that, like the morning meeting, like every day at this place or at this facility, there'd be like a morning meeting talking about, okay, what's going on today for all the clients. So then you would explain to your team, like the LEC, social workers, that you have so-and-so at 10 o'clock. And if they're okay with that, they're like, okay, cool. If not, they'll be like, oh, hey, so-and-so has a medical appointment at 10. Could you do it another time? Just a great way for all of us professionals to communicate with one another, too. So that was awesome. And yeah, it was great. I love the communication, just the relationships that I built there. Again, it wasn't all great. There were some stressful moments for sure. I mean, my God, I remember when I first started though, and I was doing groups and stuff. It was like a fear. I was like, oh God, this is all a new experience. I'm afraid. I'm fear. A good fear, and I'll just be like, okay, it's time to go. It's time to get a check. Time to do a group, but then after I got more comfortable, that fear started to like go away a little bit, and, yeah, it's just funny how it all kind of works, because you go from like starting your internship, being worried, afraid to work with clients, doing groups, how to handle a bad group, good group, whatever. And then towards the end of your internship, so me, I did 9 months there. So I definitely got over 880 hours, but after my time was over, or towards like the last few weeks of my internship, it was actually kind of sad because it's funny, you just don't want to go. Like I said, you start out being afraid and worried, and then towards the end, it's just really sad because you really loved and cherished all your experiences there, and you don't want to go, but again, it's just time to move on to the next phase of your working life, and some decide to stay there and some move on, and yeah, so again gave me a good chance to really process the experience and myself as a professional and how I really improved, and when I made those mistakes, how did I adjust them to become a better therapist in the moment, and again, I had issues, and I guess my biggest issues there too would be kind of like organizing clients, scheduling time for them, because yes, you would have groups, but then also you do the assessments and you take some for your clients. Or I'm not going to lie, some supervisors would just tell me, no, this guy needs therapy. He's going to be yours. End of story, which is fine. It didn't bother me that much. The thing I guess that did bother me though is that I was so strapped on time for doing assessments, doing groups, and other different types of documentation. I didn't really have a good chance to meet with all my mental health clients on a consistent basis. I didn't, and sometimes I think, is that my fault for just not managing my time efficiently? Or was it just me doing too many assessments, or me having to do too many assessments because we just had so many clients being brought into the facility too? So I sometimes kind of struggle with that, because I felt like they really needed me, or they needed someone to talk to, and I was just so strapped on time I couldn't meet with them in a way that I wanted to meet with them. Like on a weekly basis, let's just say, there was times where I would have to wait 2 weeks at least just to see one of my clients in my mental health caseload because I didn't have the time, and again, that is something I have to work on better, and I need to again have that understanding. You're not going to have the time that you want. It's not a perfect world. You're going to work fast and efficiently, and in doing so, you're going to have more time to see clients. So that was, again, my biggest takeaway throughout my experience there. So I just want to take this time to thank all my listeners for being supportive of me and hearing my story out. And I really hope all you listeners got something out from my experience and that you grow from it. And again, if you ever have any questions, please shoot me an email or comment down the link below. So thank you all for listening. And just remember, any therapeutic advice or content explained in my podcast are not supposed to be taken as therapeutic interventions. If you feel that you are going through emotional mental health issues, please seek the advice or consultation of a licensed medical professional or a licensed mental health professional. All right. Thank you and have a good day. Bye.